Well, I am talking about the Ion Fury thing today. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if it's going to get demonetized because of the content. So just in case, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Now, I have been asking around since late last week about this whole Ion Fury controversy. And I haven't been able to get too many clear answers about exactly what's going on. A lot of people seem to be aware of the controversy, but not the details of it. Something transphobic, something homophobic, something misogynist by developers. That was what I got until Kotaku published an article that I'm going to go through because it reports the news. I'm not going to criticize the author, Nathan Grayson, on that point. There is a lack of depth in the examination of the complaints that I want to add to. That's the purpose of doing this. Like, let's actually examine whether all or part or none of what these developers said. It's on the record. Like, they didn't deny it was said. So I'm not using the word alleged. The company is owning it. So I want to look at it and I want to analyze whether or not these things actually are a problem. We don't use problematic around here. We use problem because something either is a problem or it's not. It can't be problem-ish, right? So here we go. Let me make sure I've got, all right. So I've got, there we go. So here's the article. Ion Fury Studio apologizes for developers' sexist and transphobic, see, in quotes, well done, Nathan Grayson, in quotes. That means someone else is saying it, not him. Sexist and transphobic comments will patch out offensive jokes. So, the developer of retro shooter Ion Fury, which is a Duke Nukem cheese fest shooter game, sounds pretty fun, quite frankly. I'm interested in. I wouldn't have heard it because of this controversy, except because of this controversy. So last week, this is when I started hearing about it. A user on Reset Era. And Reset Era, for people who don't know, is sort of on the, we'll say, social justice end of gaming thought. I mean, like my character, Social Justice Warrior. They're a big on outrage. Yeah, they are big on outrage. So someone posted Discord screenshots with messages from members of Ion Fury's development studio, Voidpoint, which included remarks from a lead developer who goes by the handle Terminx about how SJWs are fucking nuts. So far, that is just his opinion. I am sure that, I have a character that parodies social justice warriors, and the character is kind of goofy. So this is not out of the realm of mainstream thought. There is a difference between somebody who cares about social justice and someone who is a social justice warrior. The difference, the average person, and this is important to people on the Reset Era forum, the average person thinks SJWs are nuts. This is public opinion. So according to me, that's fair game as somebody who's been called a social justice warrior. But it goes on. This Terminx says, something I don't really understand about the social justice stuff is that they have stuff like the SlutWalk, which I thought was about the right to not be harassed for how they dress, but then if you portray women dressed the same way, you get shit for it. And Terminx wrote this in a discussion with other members of the Discord channel. Ion Fury stars a woman character, but Terminx made a point of noting that it contains no feminist slant. I guess this is what they claim is misogynist or something. Sexist, yeah. This is the sexist comment. I cannot say that that's sexist. I can't. In fairness to Terminx, that is a question I have been asked by a great many people who are not sexist. They are just confused because it seems like a contradiction. That's fair. I mean, the answer in social justice circles is if a woman chooses to dress that way, it's fine. If men are putting a female character in that outfit solely for the pleasure of other men, that's when it becomes a problem. I would like to see a test of if a female game developer, you look at some of the old Sierra games, there's belly dancers all through those games. There's sexy ladies all through those games. Now, the argument is that women have the right to depict women any way they choose. Men have to be, respectful. I don't necessarily agree. I don't think it's just how the character's dressed. I think that if the character is dressed in a certain way and that is the only purpose for that character to just be eye candy, that's one thing. But if the wardrobe of the character reflects the character and the character is has depth and complexity and seems well-rounded, they're a well-written character, that's totally fair. For instance, it's very silly to argue about Lara Croft's short shorts in a game where she fights a T-Rex. There's an element of surreality. If there was no surreality and everything was like, realistic except for the fact that nobody wears shorts in the jungle, you wear long pants to stop insect bites and parasites, that would be different. But Tomb Raider, it's not reality, it's surreality. And so fine, that's in service to that, right? Also back then, they couldn't animate clothing. So, it was either leg or tights or something like that, or pants that didn't look right. So, but that's just one example. This is a difficult thing. And this is why it's really important to have, women involved in your development process. So a woman involved can go, come on. And because women know, Midna's climbing this shelf. Be careful, Midna. I think she's chasing a bug. But women know when people are just being pervs and when it's in service to the character. This is why it's really important to have someone who has awareness of this. I think it's really important to have women on staff who have dressed sexy intentionally. So, because, we're the ones that can say this felt empowering, this didn't. And of course, it's different for every woman. And that's why it has to be very much in service to the character, not somebody's libido. But in and of itself, I don't consider that comment sexist. I think it's just a point of confusion that really does need to be worked out. I think there's something valid in the question. But it went on. And this is where they start to lose me. Another developer who goes by Datalon expressed similar thoughtless skepticism towards trans people, implying that now the reporter's given his opinion. Fair game in modern news, but back in my day, we had to be careful with these characterizations that we couldn't prove. Implying that mutilating a perfectly healthy body while you have depression and other big issues could lead to suicide. I would have preferred more of a quote there. Like, context here is really critical. Now, I will acknowledge, usually, just for people who aren't sure about this stuff, using the term mutilation to refer to gender confirmation surgery, don't do that. Like, just don't. If you mean well, it won't be taken as meaning well. And if you don't mean well, you're the one with the problem. That's a sore point. So in terms of tone, they have an argument here. I think if you're going to add opinion, saying it was thoughtless is better than saying it's transphobic. Tip of the hat to Nathan Grayson for that one. I would have left out the commentary there personally, and I would have used more of a quote a longer quote, because I don't know what the context for that statement was. The assumption, based on the way Kotaku has presented this, was that referring to any or all trans people as having gender confirmation surgery, the implication is that it's considered mutilation. I'm not willing to say that, but still, that statement is a problem. People, post-op trans people have healthy bodies. Their mind and their body pre-hormones, pre-surgery might not be in sync with each other, but a person who's had gender confirmation surgery, their body is perfectly healthy. It's still perfectly healthy. It just makes the relationship between the mind and the body healthier. That's all it does. And people have the rights. The whole thing about bodily autonomy is people have the right to do anything they want to their body. I'm not going to get into the bad faith arguments argued on this point. This is just sort of, I feel strongly about this stuff, and I admit I cringed at the word mutilating. It's a bit of not great reporting here that there wasn't more context. Context is really critical here, especially since Voidpoint, the developer, says, you can see here, the comments were taken out of context. I agree that they have a complaint here. I would like to see the complete context. If anybody has the complete context of this comment, please get in touch with me. I will follow up on this story on Feedback Friday. And now we get to the in-game content, which, let's face it, is a lot more important than what somebody puts on Discord. Because a video game team is lots of people, a couple of guys, maybe an asshole. I don't know how to feel about taking it out on the entire team. If it's a lead developer, leaders are responsible. But I set a pretty high bar for that sort of thing. I admit that the trans-related comments, the thoughtless comments about trans people do bother me in current context. I would, or current lack of context. I would love to see the complete quote. Just personally, before I completely make up my mind. As it is now, yeah, I see why people are upset the way it was presented. But in game, there's a parody of the Olay shampoo brand as "Oh Gay," which I admit I kind of chuckled at. I don't find anything inherently homophobic about that. That's just a play on words. I chuckled. I'm clearly very LGBTQ plus positive, but that's funny. "Oh Gay." That's funny. I mean, trust me, those of us who run in LGBTQ plus circles, especially those of us, I was doing LGBTQ plus activism when we just called it gay rights back in the 90s when it was hard. We used to make jokes like that. People still make jokes like that. Hang around any gay people. O'Grady becomes O'Gady and things like that. That is not inherently, what is it saying about the state of being homosexual? Nothing, right? And then again, we have a lack of context and a secret area in which you can find the word fag bag. Okay, we don't have any context other than Voidpoint is pulling the content out of the game and is donating $10,000 of the earnings to the Trevor Project, which is a nonprofit organization focused on suicide prevention among LGBTQ plus youth. LGBTQ youth. I don't want to misread it. The language in question was not approved, allegedly. Now, it's story time. I had a particular issue. I feel like this is a bit of a double standard in terms of how smaller game developers are treated versus how big name game developers are treated, and how different, and this is probably more it, I want to be clear, sober second thought, different issues are treated with greater or less severity, because the left does rank the seriousness of an issue and who gets to complain. When the game BioShock Infinite came out, It came out right before Easter and Passover of that year. I did my Seder the first or second night. I think it was the first night. Was really tired, wanted to sit down and relax. Fired up BioShock Infinite. Okay, it's all this Christian revivalist stuff, whatever. But then I get into the game. And the vending machines at certain points have yarmulkes on, little skull caps that Jewish men wear. They have yarmulkes on the vending machines. And some of them have been vandalized. And the word Heb, which for people who don't know is a slur against Jewish people, that has been somewhat reclaimed by the Jewish community. But it's one of those words, like certain words, certain people can say it and certain people can't because of intent. And so this is scrawled over these vending machines. And I'm like, what the hell, man? You release a game right before Passover, and it's never really explained. It seems like it was a plot line that was pulled out of the game. But other than me, who was quickly shouted down as, you do not understand Ken Levine's brilliance. He's not really practicing. He's of Jewish background, as I understand. But it's the whole idea of he can do it because he's Jewish. But if it's wrong, it's wrong. If we are to do the death of the author stuff in games and just go, you have to contextualize offensive content. If it's okay to show, it's okay to show. If it's not okay to show, it's not okay to show. And I was taken aback playing that game. Remember the release date again, on Passover. There are certain things that prime you to have elements of your identity front and center, right? The fact that it was never explained, and I just had to confront this, Jews as merchants, great. And yes, it's a racist and whatever world Columbia was, but they never got into it. And so I just had to experience this potentially offensive word as graffiti with no explanation. And this is how I feel about this word in the secret area. What's it doing there? What's the context? These things matter. Because if there had been an overt plot line in BioShock Infinite where the anti-Semitism was an important character or plot point, then okay. But we just had to sort of assume that they're anti-Semites. And who made the vending machines? Was it a Jewish merchant who made the vending machines? Was it a non-Jewish merchant who was using a Jewish stereotype thing with, Jews are, the vendors, the money lenders, the whole, thing like that? We don't know. It's never explained in the game because that game was on fire and they just pulled out entire parts of it. And they got a pass on that. And my attitude is, if one developer gets to do it, if one studio gets to do it, then everybody gets to do it. And if one group is called on this sort of thing, everybody should be called on this sort of thing. And so I do feel like there's a certain double standard at play here that, goes back to that, SlutWalk, but if we do it, it's bad. I can understand why people are confused. And for those of us that care about these issues, we have a responsibility to make this stuff clearer because people clearly want to do the right thing. Like what I got from the Ion Fury developer, from Terminx on that point, was that they want to be decent and respectful to women. They just don't really know how. They're confused. I can... I'm sympathetic to that. I would love to talk to developers who have these questions and, kind of say, because when I consult, it's not don't do this or do this. It's here's the risk you run with this. Here's what you have to do to make it okay. If you'd rather just avoid it completely, don't do it. If you're at all worried about controversy, don't do it. If you're okay with a certain amount of risk, here's how you go about it. This is what women on game developer do. This is why women should be on game dev teams. And this is why just taking certain types of women out of games doesn't work. But these are important discussions that we need to have. And if you just get, hi Midna, bombarded by the outrage mob and we don't have discussions about this, it's never going to get better. It's never going to get clearer. And we're not going to get true parity of inclusion in gaming. Parity of inclusion means, women feel like gaming is as much theirs as guys, just in plain English. But that's where I'm at on this. There is some information missing. If somebody can please tell me, if somebody can please fill in the blanks to this. If you don't want to post it publicly, by all means, send it to me in Twitter DM, RedLeannaK on Twitter. Or if somebody wants to on Twitch tonight, whisper me some links or something like that. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll follow this up on Friday. Because right now I do feel like there is some information missing in this before I can properly judge some of these quotes. I think definitely the worst thing to me is the mutilation comment regarding trans people. Everything else, gray area, or quite frankly, I don't see the problem with it. Context, people. Context matters. Okay. If you like this content, which YouTube has a tendency to demonetize, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Oh yeah, patrons. If you know where this stuff is, send it to me on Patreon. Thanks for watching.